Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another live Quanser user webinar. My name is Armin Mulkey, and I will be your host and moderator this morning. We're thrilled and honored to have Dr. Mohammed Hayajna from the Hashemite University in Jordan to discuss his research work on enabling ground and aerial robots with control and navigation systems for outdoor applications. Let me introduce today's guest speaker. Dr. Mohammed Hayajna received his bachelor's and master's degrees in Mechatronics Engineering from the Jordan University of Science and Technology in 2010 and 2020, respectively. He also received a PhD in automatic control and operational research from the University of Bologna in Italy in 2016. Currently, he is an assistant professor in mechatronics engineering at the Hashemite University in Jordan. His research interests include the design and development of control and navigation methods in aerial and ground robots and their applications. And with that, Dr. Mohammed, the audience is all yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Armin, for inviting me to present this webinar. And thank you all for your interest to attend. It gives me great pleasure to present to you most of our research activities at the Hashemite University in Jordan, which I summarized under the title Enabling Ground and Aerial Robots with Control and Navigation Systems for Outdoor Applications. So at the beginning, I would like to give you a brief story about our lab and the resources we have. We are about to finish equipping a lab at the Hashemite University under the title Systems of Mechatronics Automations and Robotic Strings for educational and research purposes. The lab includes the tools and the equipment that enable us to produce electric cars which are powered by solar energy. We have also a full robotics system that includes a ground robot and 2 drones and a motion tracking system, thanks to the people in Quanser who provided us with such system. We thank also the group of technology integration in Jordan who imported this system. I would like to add here that the shiny feature in this system, I mean the system from Quanser, that the Quark toolbox in Simulink MATLAB, which they provide with the system, this toolbox facilitates the process of designing and verifying controls for robotics applications. In another side, my colleagues in the Mechatronics Engineering department and I have received funds for 2 projects. The first one is to build a group of electric cars that are charged through solar cells installed on the roof and also through a fixed charging station. These cars will be connected with drones hovering around for security needs. Another project is funded to build a full cell, a fuel cell and hydrogen electric car. Recently, our project entitled the Drone Assisted Micro Irrigation for Dry Lands in Jordan, based on IoT sensor networks, has been funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering in UK. Basically, the work on this project will be conducted by installing a set of sensors that collect data on soil and send them to drones hovering nearby. Based on IoT, this data will be collected and analyzed in a ground station for optimized irrigation process. This project will be accomplished within 2 years with the partners research groups at University of Leeds and the Mars Robotics company in Jordan. One of the research activities that was conducted using the robotic system that we have from Quanser is a validation of an integrated control system for a mobile robot. The goal of this work was to design an integrated and accurate control system for a differential wheel mobile robot. The control approach takes into account the subsystems controller for the problem related to robot path tracking. To this end, the control structure includes the design of a sliding mode control scheme to stabilize the robot and precisely track the path that matches the kinematics of the mechanical structure. Moreover, the control structure provides a design of the DC motor controller for optimum performance. To obtain an integrated control system for automated tasks, an accurate position estimation, and an optimized high-level path planning algorithm have been proposed. To validate the effectiveness of the proposed integrated control structure for the trajectory problem, the robot performance was tested in tracking a circular path and a square one. Here the results show the high accuracy of the robot's tracking on these paths. We can consider this work is essential for future development directions. One of the most important improvements is the design and implementation of a visual-based navigation system for mapping and obstacle avoidance. Another necessary development is to design a motion estimation system for outdoor application. In another work, thanks to Antonio, the smart programming guy, we were able to design and implement a virtual GPS using motion capture system for a quadcopter. Basically, this work aims to find a system that allows the researchers to conduct experiments in the lab while maintaining the characteristics of the use of GPS module. The motion tracking system with the Quark toolbox from Quanser help us to validate the work on Apex Hawk-based quadcopter, which is a third-party platform. By this, the GPS messages are formed similar to the protocol used in a GPS receiver and sent to the robot by the same means of communication. In this experiment, the quadcopter was running on a loiter mode that keeps the lateral position fixed, while the vertical and lateral positions could be controlled by the RC transmitter. First, the quadcopter takes off automatically from home point, then the altitude changes based on commands from the user. The midpoint of the OptiTrack flying system was set as a reference point, so the location of this point was defined approximately through the Google map. Time-based GPS data, along with other flight information, were stored in the autopilot SD card in order to analyze aircraft performance and to debug errors. When you are evaluating your system on a quadcopter for the first time, you always keep in mind the margin of unpredictable behaviors of the drone. This explains why we recorded the video behind the protection nets. To obtain accurate estimates for quadcopter positions, an extended Kalman filter is usually used to fuse the low rate information from GPS with high rate measurements from an accelerometer. The corresponding positions in mid-frame are presented in figures and compared with the estimated positions from the autopilot extended Kalman filter. The figures show how the quadcopter maintains hovering horizontally around the point 0, within a radius of 0.5 meter. Another submitted work which results were verified in the lab before going outdoor test was about accurate state estimations and velocity drifting compensations using complementary filters for a quad rotor in GPS drop regions, using low-cost sensors in UAVs, such as Quadcopter requires a design of robust filtering system to compensate for noises and biases. Moreover, the coupling dynamics characteristic between the angular movements and the translational movements leads to deviations in the quadcopter's path due to the presence of biases in measurements. Usually, the estimation of quadcopter angles are calculated according to the tilt in the gravity vector, which is represented in body coordinate. However, the accelerometer readings are affected by forces such as blade flapping and drag forces that affects the estimations. Accordingly, failure to compensate for these forces leads to linear velocity drift, especially when the GPS signal is lost. Therefore, this work aims to design a filtration system using complementary filters that provides robust and accurate estimations of a quadcopter's attitude, positions, and velocities. In addition, the estimation system is able to compensate the velocity drift in the lateral directions through new acceleration model. The effectiveness of the presented system has been verified and compared with the traditional complementary filters through several flight tests. The indoor tests were performed using the motion capture system from Quanser product. The proposed estimation system shows superiority over traditional system as well as it shows its effectiveness in reducing lateral speed drift, especially when GPS is lost. The figure in the left compares between the estimation of lateral velocities using the improved complementary filter and the traditional one. The figure shows almost zero velocity drifting in the improved filter with around 0.3 meter shifting in position during 95 seconds. The second flight with the traditional complementary filter was terminated after 54 seconds due to the fast drift with limited room space. The position shift is in this flight was about or more than 2 meters during this period of time. The attitude in the proposed filter was compared with the true reference as shown in the second figure to ensure the effectiveness of the filter in filtering out the noises and compensating for the biases. Here, a great work has been done by a team from different universities, focuses on developing a real-time motion planning for a quadcopter. The work discusses a new fuzzy potential approach for motion planning of a UAV. The fuzzy control system generates an attractive force that pulls the UAV effectively toward a moving or stationary target. The fuzzy system also is considered to generate a repulsive force which is required to avoid any stationary or moving obstacles. The real-time experiments to verify the performance of the proposed control system was performed based on the robotics platforms with a motion capture system from Quanser. The robotic system solution consists of 2 quad rotors and 1 ground robot. In the experiments of this work, a drone quadcopter was adopted to receive path information from the fuzzy-based motion planner, updated at 10 Hz. The updated path position allows the quadcopter to automatically track a moving ground robot, which is the target, and to avoid in the same time another moving quadcopter, which is the obstacle. The fuzzy-based motion planner receives real-time position and velocity information of all robotics platforms and runs a Simulink model on ground control station computer. To evaluate the drone's performances in tracking the ground robot and avoiding the obstacle drone, several scenarios were taken into account during the experiment. One of these scenarios, as shown here, using this approach, the main drone can reach a stationary ground robot while it is encountering the stationary obstacle drone in its path. We see here how the main drone modified its path to avoid the stationary drone. The main drone can track a moving ground robot. Also, the main drone is able to keep a distance from the obstacle drone and be close enough to the ground robot, which is the target. In similar work, the effectiveness of fuzzy neural-based controller was verified on a Pixlock-based quadcopter in outdoor experiments. The main objective of this work was to develop the attitude and altitude of a quadcopter using an adaptive neuro-fuzzy inference system, the AMPHIS controller. The second objective of this work is to create a systematic framework for implementing flight controllers in embedded systems. To show the effectiveness of the AMPHIS approach, the performance of a well-trained AMPHIS controller was compared to a classical PD controller and a tuned fuzzy logic controller. Comparing AMPHIS with PD and fuzzy controllers, simulation results have clearly demonstrated the feasibility and effectiveness of the proposed control approach in terms of reference tracking and disturbance rejection. This work went beyond simulation to practical application of the quadcopter, where a complete flight system is designed and implemented in a Pixhawk autopilot using a Pix4 Simulink support package. The flight system contained AMPHIS controllers, attitude and position estimations, and vision-based precision landing algorithms, which are successfully deployed in the autopilot. Several flight tests were conducted, and the results showed that the controllers performed perfectly in achieving the attitude and altitude stability of the quadcopter. First, the AMPHIS-based attitude and the altitude controllers were tested in manual mode, where a user sends commands by a remote controller to control the position of the drone in the space. The commands in manual mode are throttle signal to control the altitude, the roll, pitch, and yaw angle, control the drone attitude. The figure illustrates the flight path of the quadcopter. Secondly, the drone's performance are tested in loiter mode, where the drone automatically keeps its horizontal positions based on GPS locations, as well as the drone holding its altitude based on barometer estimations. In this mode, the position controller sends the desert angles and height commands to the attitude and the altitude controllers, which keep the drone hovering over a certain point. In this case, the attitude and the altitude controllers are primarily responsible for maintaining the drone's balance. Okay, this is all I have for today. I hope there will be more meetings. I also hope that this session will be a key to research collaborations. If you have any questions regarding research details or you are willing to collaborate, please don't hesitate to contact me on the shown email.
Great, thank you, Dr. Muhammad. That was a fascinating presentation, and I'm glad to see the extent to which our products have helped you validate some of your research ideas. We do have a bunch of questions that have come in from the audience, so I'm just going to go through them one by one. One of the audience members is asking that in slide 2, you've connected a drone with the car, and they wanted to know what was the point of that.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Here we represent recharging the drone's battery via a charging dock mounted on a solar car. The goal here is to enable the drone to perform several tasks per day in remote areas. Currently, we are implementing a new idea for charging process. We do this on the system provided by Quanser, since the drone has a lower camera that enables us to validate the precision landing process which we need to perform in outdoor application.
Thank you. In one of the projects that you demonstrated, you talked about micro irrigation and smart agriculture. What is the role of the drone in this particular project?
Okay. Initially, the project idea revolves around placing wireless sensors in the ground to measure some vital soil properties such as humidity, temperature, and salinity. This in turn will give us an impression of the plant's actual need for water with the optimal amount. The main target of the drone will be collecting data from these sensors and send it periodically to the ground station for processing. Another goal is to perform a spectral imaging that provides more information about the plant's growth. This, as I said, that this project is funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering, and it's for 2 years, and we just started with this project.
Thank you. One of the attendees is wondering if you used ROS for any of the development, and if you haven't, what was the development platform or software that you've used?
Do you mean the robotics, the ROS? The robotics,
Yeah, just in general, I believe the question is more generic. For example, in this one was, did you use ROS, or was there any other platform,
actually,
software
this,
platform?
yeah, we use we did a similar version with this work, which is the virtual GPS design using uh, the uh, the OptiTrack system. But in this version or this work, we tried to make a code using the Python and Raspberry Pi. So we take the benefits from the Quark toolbox, which help us too much to go with the communications and with the I mean, to connect the third-party platform, which is the Bixhawk.
And how about the for the indoor applications? The
For
the
the
Yeah, so no, just in general, what was the development platform? What software did you use for the indoor application for developing your models?
yeah, okay. For if you mean the platforms that we actually we use different platforms like the Raspberry Pi, as shown here in the uh, this in this slide. So we were able to connect also with the Pixhawk autopilot. Uh, in addition to the platforms that were provided by Quanser.
Okay, thank you very much. One of the audience members is asking for the vertical takeoff of the quadcopter. Um, are you using the same controller you use for the rest of the flight, or do you have a separate controller just for the vertical takeoff?
Which experiment, the vertical takeoff.
They're not specific as to which um, experiment, but in general, when you've developed your controllers, do you have a separate flight controller that handles the takeoff?
Actually, yeah, we one of the advantages of the system that was installed by Quanser is that it is considered a full solution that includes ready control and communication systems on Simulink, enable you to essentially run this test. Of course, this will greatly help you in adding your own control system or modifying existing systems without the headache that comes from building the whole system from scratch. For example, this work, yeah, this one, the the controllers and the ground robot, we created the new control systems, but the predefined communication system facilitated the accomplishment of the task.
Thank you. I have time for two more questions, Dr. Mohammed. In some of your work, you use fuzzy and neural-based control systems to control the drone. One question that always comes up is the computing demand. Could you kindly comment on that?
Okay, I agree that such systems require high processing and computing. Usually, we resort to such system because they can solve some of the problems that result in other systems. For example, in the experiment of motion planning, the benefit of fuzzy logic is the absence of new changes between states. Also, it improves the or provide continuous executions, and it is free from local minima problem. The path planning for robots or is treated as high-level controller that does not consider the dynamics control inputs, motion constraints, and the duration of motion in order to reduce the computational burden on the embedded resources. The output from the proposed method can be provided at low frequency. Maybe Armin, you can also explain about the capabilities of the platform or the computing system that is provided in Quanser drone.
Yeah, so there is a NVIDIA, sorry, an Intel Aero compute board on board, which has sufficient, computing power. So a lot of the controllers can, run locally on the on the drone system itself. I do have one last question, and the attendee is asking whether you've used a camera in a control loop in any of your um, uh, experiments to follow a particular target using vision?
Yeah, we currently we don't use a camera for controlling the motion of the drone, but currently we are implementing a new idea for charging the process, which we will use the camera for precision landing. So we will implement control techniques using this camera for precision landing and use the. I mean, this is good to force the drone to precisely land over a charging dock, which is required mainly in such application.
Yeah, just to add to that, one of the benefits of the Q drone, it is equipped with two cameras, a forward-facing camera and a downward-facing camera. And yes, and I've seen some research work that are using those cameras for doing, target identification, using vision. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today.
Thank you, Arman.
So that, no problem. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. And so I just want to thank you once again, Dr. Mohammed, for this amazing presentation, and a big thank you to everyone who attended today. I do highly recommend that you visit our website at www.quanser.com to find out more about our numerous research validation platforms, as well as our upcoming webinars.